Hey guys, so for today's video, I created this soft glam cut crease using my eyeshadow palette with Sigma. I think this is a great look for any kind of occasion where you're going out, and what's fun about this look is that you can kind of make it as intense as you want. I kept it a little more on the softer side today by doing a shadow wing and a half lash, but you can make it even more intense by doing a black wing, a fuller lash, a little more smoky, so you can kind of play with it as you want. So let's zoom in and get started on this eye look. I have been wanting to film kind of a soft neutral cut crease look with my palette ever since it came out, so I'm super excited to be filming this today. And just a friendly reminder that my palette is still 20% off on Sigma's website for their semi-anniversary sale. So of course I'm gonna link this down below for you and all of the Sigma brushes I'll be using today as well. I'm gonna start with the shade Basic on a Sigma E25, and I'm gonna run this shade throughout my entire crease, and I am using the tip of the brush to blend out this shade. I am going to pick up more shadow and build up this color. And for me, this shade is like my perfect transition shade, which is why I'm starting with this color. And you want to make sure you get this transition shade all the way into your inner crease right in here, because I am going to be doing a half cut crease today. So I want to make sure I have shadow here that's going to contrast nicely with the cut crease. On the same brush, I'm going to pick up Bare. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that shade and blend right underneath my brow, just to make sure I have a really smooth blend. I'm still using the same brush. Now I'm going to pick up Schmoogala, and I'm just picking up a little bit of this shade at first because it is really pigmented, and I'm going to tap off the brush as always. And I'm going to use this shade to start to deepen up my crease. So I'm looking down into a mirror, and I'm using the tip of the brush and just softly wiggling the brush back and forth in my crease. And again, you want to make sure you get all the way from the inner crease right in here, all the way to the outer crease. I'm gonna go back to that first shade Basic and just use that to blend around Schmoogala. I always like to go back to my first transition shade to help me blend. Now I'm going to take more Schmoogala on the flat side of the E25, and I'm going to start by lightly packing this shade on the outer part of my lid and connecting it into my outer crease. I'm picking up a little more shadow, and I'm just building this up. So with this eyeshadow on my outer lid, I am kind of pulling it upwards towards the tail of my brow, giving that kind of soft, lifted cat eye shape. Okay, once I'm happy with the blend in my crease and I have all of my brown shades laid down, I'm going to do the half cut crease. Now for a half cut crease, I like to use a really small brush, so I'm going to use this Sigma E21. I actually use this brush for a lot of different steps in my eye makeup routine, but it'll be perfect for a cut crease too because it's nice and small. You want a small brush that's going to let you do that carved out shape, so I like this kind of short and stiff brush. I always like to use a concealer for my cut creases, preferably one that has more of a matte finish to it, and I like one that's pretty light compared to my skin tone, so I'm going to take this one by Urban Decay. This is the Quickie concealer, and I'm using the shade 20 CP. So you really only need a tiny amount of concealer, so I'm just going to take some on the back of my hand, and then I'm picking that up on that E21. And I like to start by looking down into a mirror and kind of covering up my inner lid right here, because this is probably the easiest part to do for the cut crease. And then I like to look up and around, and wherever the concealer transfers to is where I'm going to continue the cut crease. And because we're doing a half cut crease, I am stopping about right there. And then I like to take my finger and just kind of pat along this line where the concealer is meeting the matte eyeshadow, just so it blends it out a little bit more. If you've watched me do cut creases in the past, I used to use a really thin brush, but I feel like that would give me too harsh of a line for the cut crease, so this gives me a much softer effect, which I think I prefer. So you can see how that just kind of brightened up my eyelid, and again, I like that it's a matte concealer, because if I wanted to, I can make this a matte cut crease, but I am going to go on top of the shimmer. But before we do that, I'm going to take my E25 with nothing on it and just softly blend in the crease right above that cut crease line that I just made, just to smooth everything over. Now for the shimmer, we have a few options for my palette. You could use either Bright, Champagne Problems, or even Hollywood if you wanted to do something a little fun. I think I'm gonna do Champagne Problems today. So I'm actually gonna take that on that same E21 I just used. And I always like to start on the cut crease part since this kind of is the trickiest area. And just run my brush along that line. And then I can bring it onto my lid, which is much easier to fill in. I am loving how this eye look is looking so far. Now let's move on to the lower lash line. I'm switching to a small blending brush. This is a Sigma E27 in the shade Schmoogala. Again, I have the shade on the tip of the brush like that, and I'm just gonna run this across my entire lower lash line. And as always, I'm going to relax my face and bring up this shadow towards my temple, kind of where I have that shadow right out here on the outer crease. Now I'm gonna go back to my transition shade Basic, and I'm just gonna blend around those edges of Schmoogala. Okay, now I want to do a little bit of highlighting. So I'm going to take the shade Bright on that same E21 and pop that right in my inner corner, a little under my brow. And then for my cut creases, I like to add a little bit of my highlight shade right on the tippity top of my cut crease, just to make it really pop. Now I want to do a little shadow wing. So I'm going to take the shade Cold Brew on a Sigma E65. And I'm going to start by stamping the shadow along the outer part of my top lash line. And then drawing a slight line outwards. And then just connecting that line inwards to make a little wing. I really find that shadow wings are so much easier than using some kind of pen or liquid liner. Shadow wings just look so much softer and they're a little more forgiving in my opinion. All right, I went ahead and popped on some mascara and lashes. For my lashes today, I'm just wearing a really soft half lash right here on the outer corner, and that is the Bright Lashes, which is my lash brand in the style Flirt. And here's a final close-up of the eyes. And then here's what everything looks like from more of a normal distance. In case you're wondering, on my lips, I'm wearing the Charlotte Tilbury lip liner in Iconic Nude and the Sigma lip oil in the shade All Heart. I love how this eye look turned out, and I think it's perfect for any kind of occasion where you want to be a little more glammed up and put together. I think it's so pretty. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.